Hi, my name is Shelly, and welcome back to another episode of Just a Girl and Her Healing podcast. If this is your first time here, I just want to say welcome. And if you've been here before, thank you for sitting with me again. You know, sometimes when you are the strong one, the reflective one, the praying one, you forget that you're human too. I stepped away for a little while, and it's not out of inconsistency, but intention. I needed time to breathe, to listen, and time to realign with who I am becoming. And during that time, I had to give myself so much grace and knowing that it's okay to take breaks without guilt. And with that realization came clarity, the clarity that I'm safe to rest. And rest isn't laziness, it's a necessity, it's alignment. So I'm coming back with more clarity, more softness, and more truth. Today, I want to ask you a question that might make you uncomfortable. A question that might make you emotional. A question that might shift your entire life if you let it. And if you saw the title, you know exactly what that question is. But I want you to ask yourself, what's your purpose? And before you answer quickly, before you say to be a mother, to make money, to help people, to survive, I want you to sit with it. Because purpose isn't just about what you do, it's who you are when you're healed. And we spend so much time of our lives asking, what career should I choose? Who should I marry? How do I become successful, or how do I prove myself? But we rarely ask the deeper question. Who am I without my trauma? Who am I without survival mode? Who am I when I'm not trying to be accepted? Because sometimes what we call purpose, quote unquote, is actually pain in disguise. Some of us became the strong one because we had no choice. Some of us became the helper because no one helped us. Some of us became hyper independent because relying on people hurt too much. And we build identities around survival. But survival is not the same thing as purpose. When you start healing, everything shifts. You begin to realize you were shrinking to be loved. You were overgiving to feel worthy. You were chasing validation because you didn't feel enough. And the moment you notice the shift, something happens. You stop asking, how do I prove myself? And you start asking, what feels aligned? What feels peaceful? What feels like me? You see, healing strips away the mask. It softens the armor. It makes you uncomfortable because suddenly you can't blame your past anymore. You can't hide behind who you had to be. Now you have to decide who you want to become. And that's where purpose is born. Healing didn't come gently at first. It came through discomfort, through grief, through moments where I had to sit with parts of myself I spent years avoiding. There was a season of my life where survival was a goal, not fulfillment, not passion. I felt so disconnected from everything, including myself. I was moving, functioning, I was showing up, but I wasn't present. And in that moment, healing taught me compassion. It taught me discernment. It taught me how to sit in the uncomfortable truth without needing to escape it. And slowly, I realized something. I realized I was carrying wounds that was never mine to carry. The wounds of people pleasing, overgiving, abandoning myself so I wouldn't be abandoned by others. And during that time, asking what is my purpose, it almost felt insulting. Like, how am I supposed to find purpose when I'm still trying to feel safe in my own body? But here's what I've learned. Purpose doesn't show up when you have it all together. Okay? Purpose is not pressure. And let me say this gently. Your purpose is not a performance. You will discover your purpose while abandoning yourself. You won't find it in burnout. You won't find it in overextending. And you're definitely not going to find it if you're pretending you're okay when you're not. You will find it in stillness, in therapy, in prayer, in journaling, in boundaries, in crying and not judging yourself for it. You'll find it when you finally decide, I deserve to know who I really am. It's not about being the loudest, the most successful, the most spiritual, the most followed. Okay? Purpose is the place where your healing meets your honesty. It's where your pain transforms into wisdom, where your wounds turn into compassion, where your story becomes medicine for someone else. But you cannot access that if you refuse to heal, because unhealed parts, it distorts purpose. It makes you chase things to feel important. It makes you attach to roles that exhaust you. It makes you confuse attention with alignment. My dear, healing clears your vision. You see, sometimes we think purpose has to be loud and grand. But purpose shows up when you're honest. When you finally stop running from the pain and sit with it long enough to listen, to truly, truly listen and listen with intention. Maybe your purpose is to break generational patterns. Maybe it's to learn how to love safely, to show your children emotional regulation, to teach through vulnerability, to simply be the healed version of you. My love, that is not small, okay? That is revolutionary, especially in families, cultures, and environment where emotional awareness was never modeled. Healing yourself shifts timeline, and that in itself is purpose. Let's talk about identity. There's something we don't talk about enough. Sometimes we don't know our purpose because we don't actually know who we are. We know who we had to be. We know who people expected us to be. We know who to survive. But who are you without the pressure? Who are you when no one needs anything from you? Who are you when you're not performing strength? For some of you listening, that question might make your chest tight because you've been the strong one for so long. You've been the dependable one, the forgiving one, the resilient one, the one who figures it out. But strength can become a mask, And when strength becomes a mask, purpose gets buried underneath it. Healing asks you to take the mask off. And that can feel terrifying. Because when you put down survival, there's a moment of emptiness. And that emptiness isn't failure. It's space, a space in where purpose begins to speak. And this is something a lot of people don't talk about, and that's the grief that comes with healing. No one tells you that when you start healing, you grieve. You grieve the version of you who tolerated less, the years you abandoned yourself, the relationships you outgrew, the dreams you chased for the wrong reasons. And sometimes you even grieve the identity you built because that identity kept you safe, even if it was heavy, even if it was exhausting, even if it wasn't fully you. And here's the hard truth. You cannot step into your purpose without grieving who you thought you had to be. Purpose requires death. Not physical death, but ego death. The death of people pleasing. The death of over explaining. The death of chasing. The death of shrinking. And that kind of death hurts. But on the other side of it, clarity. You see, purpose is not found, it's remembered. What if I told you your purpose isn't something you had to go to find? It's something you have to remember. Think about when you were a child, before the rejection, before the heartbreak, before the comparison, before the responsibilities that came too early. Who were you? What did you love naturally? What felt effortless? Sometimes your purpose is hidden in your earliest joy. And trauma disconnects us from that joy. Healing reconnects us. You don't become someone new when you heal. You return to who you were before you were told who to be. You see, for a long time, I thought purpose was something you arrived at. Like one day I'd wake up and suddenly know, this is it. This is why I'm here. I kept thinking if I just find the right thing, everything will make sense. But that's not how it happened for me. My purpose revealed itself through my healing. You see, we don't speak much about the role of fear. So let's talk about it. Because I want you to know how much fear will disguise itself as logic. It will say, be realistic. Don't dream too big. You're too old. You're too late. You're not qualified. But if you listen closely, fear gets loudest when you get closest to alignment. Because purpose stretches you. It will ask you to speak when you've been silent. Rest when you've been grinding. Set boundaries when you've been accommodating. Walk away when you've been holding on. And fear will say, if you change, you'll lose people. And sometimes you will. But you'll find yourself. And that is worth everything. Let's talk about when purpose feels unclear. Some of you listening might be thinking, I genuinely don't know my purpose. And I want to gently release you from the pressure of having a fully mapped out answer. Because purpose isn't always a title. Sometimes it's a season. Okay? Maybe your purpose right now is to heal. It's to regulate your nervous system, to break cycles, to learn how to love without losing yourself. Maybe your purpose isn't about building something outward. Maybe it's about rebuilding yourself inward. And that is sacred work. And do not minimize it. Okay? Let's talk about the spiritual layer. For those of you who are spiritually inclined, I want you to consider this. What if your soul chose certain experiences not to punish you, but to shape you? Not to break you, but to deepen you. Your sensitivity, your empathy, your discernment, your intuition, those aren't accidents. Okay, those are tools. But unhealed wounds can distort spiritual gifts. Empathy without boundaries becomes self-neglect. Discernment without healing becomes judgment. Intuition without grounding becomes anxiety. Healing purifies your gifts. And when your gifts are purified, purpose becomes clear. My love, I want to talk about purpose and worthiness. And let's get even deeper, okay? Some of us don't struggle with finding our purpose. We struggle with believing we're worthy of it. You minimize your voice, you compare your journey, you disqualify yourself before even trying. Because somewhere along the way you learned, I'm too much or I'm not enough. But purpose requires worthiness, not arrogance, not ego, worthiness. The quiet confidence that says, I am allowed to take up space. I am allowed to evolve. I am allowed to want more. Healing rebuilds self-worth from inside out. And once you truly believe you are worthy, you stop settling for lives that feel small. Here's something I want you to reflect on, my love. I want you to grab a journal after this episode and write without censoring yourself. I want you to finish these sentences. I feel most alive when I feel most drained when I am pretending when I am most myself when if I wasn't afraid, I would. And then sit with what comes up. Don't judge it. Don't edit it. Don't make it make sense yet. Because like I said, purpose reveals itself in honesty. There was a time when I thought my purpose was just to survive, to endure, to push through, to hold everything together. But survival isn't living. And when I started healing, I realized I had to build a life around coping. And coping is not calling. So I had to unlearn. I had to slow down. And I had to feel what I avoided. And in that quiet moment, I began to hear myself again. That's where purpose whispered. In silence, not in chaos, not in applause, in stillness. Let me tell you something about the ripple effect. Your healing is not selfish. Because when you heal, your children benefit. Your friendships shift. Your standards rise. Your community feels it. You model emotional safety. You normalize accountability. You break patterns that have existed for generations. That ripple effect, that is purpose in motion. You don't have to be famous to be impactful. You just have to be aligned. So I'm going to ask you again, what is your purpose? And this time, answer slowly. Is it rooted in fear or freedom? Is it rooted in proving or peace? Is it rooted in pain or purpose? And if you don't have the full answer yet, that's okay. Because maybe your purpose right now is simply this: to heal enough to recognize it when it arrives. Take a deep breath. You are not behind. You are not late, and you are not lost. You are unfolding, and the more you heal, the clearer your path becomes. So before you end this episode, ask yourself, not from pressure, not from fear, but from curiosity, what feels true to me right now? What am I being invited to release? And who am I becoming as I heal? You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to listen. My love, thank you for sitting with me today. If this episode spoke to you, sit with it a little longer. Journal it out, pray on it, let it unfold in its own time. Until next time, my love, be gentle with yourself, okay? Healing is still happening and you are still becoming. I love you so, so much. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode.